If you love music, you must pirate to help destroy that business model. So can you help us quantify?
But maybe not pirate from really small bands that are just starting out, because we need to help them in order to destroy the old business model. Now, I actually think you're right, and there is a theory about where this comes from, insofar as this subject is capable of being theorized. And the theory is about what are called network externalities. Now, network externalities is something I should be able to explain to you guys in technical terms first. Imagine that there are not one kind of telephone, but two kinds of telephones. And the two kinds of telephones will never talk to each other. Now, how useful each of these two kinds of telephones are is determined not primarily by how good the phone algorithm, the phone standard is, but by how many other people are using that phone standard. If you can call anyone in the world using a particular kind of telephone, it doesn't matter that there's another better telephone somewhere else. The worst telephone's more useful because of this network externality, this network of people who give you benefit because they use a certain kind of telephone, thereby enabling you to call them. And the same thing, arguably, is true of QWERTY keyboards versus Dvorak keyboards. It's true of file formats like Microsoft Word versus Abbey Word or some other file format. And the same, less intuitively, I'm going to argue, is true about culture. The value of watching or listening to or reading a particular piece of culture is partly dependent on the true merit, how good that book is, how enjoyable that piece of music is. It's also partly dependent on how many other people have listened to or watched or read it. And just think about it this way. If you are going out to buy a fantasy novel and you see on the shelf, okay, here's Harry Potter and here's some other fantasy novel, and I expect them to be equally good in terms of enjoyment that I get from the book. But I know that if I read the Harry Potter novel, I'll be able to understand all those dinner table conversations that everyone was having about Harry Potter. So I'm going to buy the Harry Potter novel, and it's more valuable to me, independent of its quality, because other people are listening to it or watching it or reading it. And that, I think, is one of the reasons why we have this winner-takes-all model of popular culture. Now, I don't think that we can completely eliminate this winner-takes-all phenomenon. I think the fact that it's better to have read the same books as the other people at your dinner table means that naturally sometimes certain kinds of things will become very popular. But what I do think we can do is to level the playing field so that you don't have huge amounts of money being invested in marketing, determining which things become the next big wave. And maybe that's where we need to change incentives so that we give less money to the people who market Harry Potter like crazy and more money to the other fantasy novel that could have been Harry Potter. So I agree with your conclusion. I think there's a mechanism there. Next.
I was wondering, what is the product of a musician? Is it the CDs they produce, or is it a concert that they are playing at? I believe that the CD is a promotional thing to make me go watch the band at the concert. So why pay for promotion? Why not just, here's the music, listen to it, and, if you like it, go to a concert, because that is the real work.
So I think that's actually exactly what's happened to music in particular. And it's a complicating thing about music that actually means that you could probably live in a world with no music copyright and never call piracy bad, and if all you had was a music production problem, you'd be fine. Where this gets trickier is with books and films. Yes, if you're an author, you can go and give readings and speeches about your book, but it's pretty hard to see how authors will ever make a living from doing that. It really seems like the core of what an author is producing is the actual text that people actually read. And the same is arguably true of films, although perhaps you could try to draw a distinction between a DVD that you watch at home and a film that you go and see in a theater, and the theater experience is richer, and you can continue to pay for that and then have free downloads of things afterwards. But I think I agree with you, but I think music is unusual in the sense that artists do have this other really good way of making money, and it's only most of them who have that option. If you're really a poor performer, you just want to sit here with your laptop and play electronic music, and I'm just going to be really nerdy and play my music here, it's going to be hard for me to produce a good concert experience, but I might produce really awesome recordings that people enjoy. And so maybe there are some corner cases there where we really still need to have this concern about music too.
Hello, Peter. I have a question about this algorithm. The way you present it is very one-sided. A very short fact check. Research repeatedly shows that an album has about 2 to 3 songs that people usually want to pay money to listen to, normally, on average. 10 years ago, this would mean you have to buy a $20 CD with tax, let's say, $7 a song. Today, this is about $1.5 a song, so 5 times or more less expensive. And all the record companies are still around. So, to me, this looks like this is optional profit, which they can do without. So, why should I engage into an optional expense for their optional profit? Where is the ethic meeting in the middle?
I think the album's probably dead. I think you can do this. I mean, you should just think about this in terms of songs, probably, instead of albums. And I think the music industry is realizing that, once every few years, someone's going to try to produce a great concept album, like, the Pink Floyd or Lou Reed albums of the 70s, and try and make an album that has a story, and that's a thing that really hangs together. But the truth is, this algorithm doesn't need to have albums in it, and music sales arguably don't really need to have albums in them anymore. I mean, it'll be probably more true in 5 or 10 years than it is right now, where you still see them being put out and you still see physical sales. I think that's going to go away.
So, just a short follow-up. So, you think that the reason that people still, the bands still produce stuff in albums is to drive CD sales, not that the new market actually requires this?
I mean, I don't want to put it in exactly those words. I think that's part of the decision-making process that goes on inside a record label. I think tradition is a big part of it for artists. If you were a new band starting out, would you want to just put out each song one by one, or would you want to try and make an album? Like maybe you grew up listening to albums, so you make albums.
Yeah. I'm thinking this is a discussion that we probably need to have, like, in the greater society, not just among 500 hackers on a field in Holland. Do you have any indication that the opposing side, so to speak, would be interested in having this discussion, or do we have to wait for the whole copyright system to collapse before anything gets done?
I don't think... I think it's a useful conversation to have. This side of the conversation is useful to have amongst hackers, but also amongst the wider society, in which 50% of the population actually goes out and uses peer-to-peer networks all the time to download stuff. I think those are the people I want to make this argument to. I guess if I'm arguing...